Dennis Kamagai, yeah.
Hey, brother. Take one more.
I'm Milton Lau, and actually born and raised in Hawaii. And funny thing, because my mom, whose picture is up on the wall over there, she's Hawaiian, and my dad actually he's Chinese. But my, the history of that actually goes way back, because my dad was actually born in Hawaii, but his dad came over from China at the age of 14. And I'm like, just kind of like crazy about how did he do this. I mean, like, he couldn't speak English, and basically he actually came here to work and seek out a better life from where he was. So he did some amazing things. So, but that's that part of the history. And then my mom actually, she's like a mix of Hawaiian, German, et cetera, because her great-grandfather actually was a German whaler that came on a whaling ship to Lahaina on Maui, and never went back to Germany. Ended up actually marrying a native Hawaiian, and then that's how their line started. So the guy's name was Meinert Reuter from Germany. So, but we try to like find out exactly where all that music came from, because he was quite musical, and then he was one of the guys that started one of the first Hawaiian bands on the island of Maui. So, and then his daughter was Nellie Reuter, and she was quite musical. Could play the piano and organ and whatnot, and so they were actually raised in Hana, Maui. And basically they were known as the Bells of Hana, and the Three Sisters. I guess because maybe they were musical and beautiful. So, and then she had a son, and his name was Tandy, and he became one of Hawaii's first great opera singers, and toured all over Europe, singing in opera houses all over Europe. And during his day, they considered him as great as Pagliacci, the great Pagliacci in Europe. And so, I read all these articles about him that was written up about, Tandy McKenzie, the great opera singer from Hawaii. So we suspect that all of the music thing came from that side of the family. So, and it's funny how I think like, these things tend to skip generations. And then, after that generation, then my mom really didn't do, really wasn't inclined to do music. And then later came our generation, and then I got interested in music. So I kind of think that much of that came from there. So, but as for me, I've always been interested in music since I was in middle school. So being in Hawaii, basically and in those days, we didn't have too much, entertainment. We had black and white TV. So, we used to entertain ourselves. So we would teach ourselves how to play the ukulele, and then my cousins and I, we would entertain the neighborhood kids in my grandmother's patio. So during that time, people like Elvis Presley, they were famous. And so we would play all those kind of songs on the ukulele and sing and, make believe we were like big stars, We were like, middle schoolers. But it was fun doing all that stuff. And then, in high school, then, I continued the music. And then in college, when I went to college, I decided that, I wanted to be a teacher. So, I went to the mainland to go to college. And so I ended up actually playing with some of the guys in college, playing music at the local college hangouts, And I think I was one of the first guys ever to introduce Hawaiian music to the people in Kansas. Things like that were pretty foreign over there. So, yeah, but it was fun, it was different for them and, different for us too. So, but yeah, I enjoyed all of that time. And then basically when I came home, I decided that perhaps I'm not going to teach. And the reason why is that when you go to, get a degree in teaching, you have to do what they call, student teaching, and basically, and so I was teaching, hoping to get a degree to teach secondary education, which is high school. And so I was going to teach history and civics and all that kind of stuff. So when I had to do student teaching, I wasn't even 21, I think, and I had to do student teaching. And I had to, so I was assigned to teach senior high school students. And some of those students were like 18, and I was like 2 years older than them. It was like, they're like my peers. So, I ended up, decided that I can't do this because, I couldn't separate that age thing, with me being 20 and them 18, and then these girls that would be 18 and they were seniors in high school, they would ask me for dates. And, it's like, that's a no-no, so I said, I can't do this. So actually, I decided that I wasn't going to teach. So then I had to decide what I'm going to do then. So, I then decided, okay, I'm going to go work in the tourist industry. And so part of that was like, you work with all the different tourists that come from various parts of the world, and then you also entertain them, And so the music part came in handy because, I could, no problem with that. So then I started getting serious about music. I said, I should be doing this stuff. So yeah, so I quit doing that tourist thing, and then started doing become a professional musician. So I was playing in clubs in Waikiki, but at that time, my interest wasn't so much into Hawaiian music. I was more into what they call top 40. So I was doing top 40 music and, rock and roll, whatever. So, and it was fun at the time, and this was like in the 70s. Yeah. And so what happened was that, after our gig ended, in Waikiki doing all that top 40 thing, I hooked up with these other guys, and they were more into Hawaiian music. And so, there was an audition for musicians. So I went to the audition, and this guy said, well, we need somebody that can sing and play. So, there were about a dozen people auditioning, and says, okay. So I sang the only Hawaiian song that I really knew really well, and so the guy told me, you're hired. So, and it was actually for a luau show, at the Sheraton and the Royal Hawaiian Hotel. So, I was doing that, and then my interest started peaking in Hawaiian music, because then I realized that a lot of the guys that are playing that, they're really good, so I could learn from these guys. So that's what happened. And then as I was getting more into Hawaiian music, I, was also getting more aware of Hawaiian culture. And during the 70s, that's when the quote-unquote Hawaiian Renaissance was happening. We had things like the hokulea. We had things like, people being proud of who they were, and being proud of the culture, etc. And one individual that really stood out at that time was a guy by the name of Gabi Pahinui. And Gabi Pahinui was, at that time, the guy that everybody turned to, because he was kind of an iconic guy, because he had this way of singing, he had this way of playing, and his whole persona was, about like hanging loose, taking it easy, no sweat, and go with the flow,
What would you say, Gabby, to the youngsters? I mean, you're such a folk hero here in Hawaii. and is famous in name in Hawaiian music. For anyone that's interested, and I'm talking about genuine Hawaiian music now, where do they get started? Where do they go, and what's your advice to them?
I would think first how I started. Listen, but don't ask questions. What favorite person that you think that you like his style of playing? Don't ask so many questions. And you just watch or you hear and you go home and practice. That's the only way. Never ask questions. And you have to have that in you. And that's the only way that's the way I learned it.
Gabby, you've been around, and like I know that you've been in other places. What does Hawaii mean to you? That's the last thing I want to ask you. I mean,
Hawaii?
I really want to hear your definition, because there's all these other places. Well, what does Hawaii mean to you?
It means a lot. It means a lot to me. That's my nationality, and I think my music represents that.
You stand
My
with that,
family, and what I'm hearing today with all the Hawaiian boys playing Hawaiian music, and I think that's what they should. Stick to that Hawaiian music. Don't change it. Then you're talking about Hawaii itself.
dude. Yeah, dude.
Okay?
I was like really attracted to what he did and the music that he was doing. And so I tried to get involved with that kind of stuff. And so I met Gabby, and this is in the late 70s. And basically, he was such an open guy, and really, I guess, he didn't really teach me anything, because he was one of those guys that if you want to learn, just watch. Just watch, you know. So he actually, you know, he let me play with him, you know, on different things that, you know, gigs that he did. And so, you know, that was kind of like the heyday of my music career, to be able to sit down and play with him, because he was such an iconic individual throughout the state of Hawaii and elsewhere that it was a real privilege for me to do this. So I got really hooked into, you know, that music. So, and then I got to know all of his sons. I got to know, you know, Blah, who is my good friend, and Cyril Pahinui, and you know, Martin Pahinui. And they were very popular then, because they were into a couple of music groups called Sunday Manoa with Peter Moon, and then the Peter Moon Band. They were like, you know, the iconic Hawaiian groups that was like at the forefront of Hawaiian music, but in a more contemporary vein, and playing slack key. So, you know, I really got really hooked into that. So what happened basically was that, you know, Gabby unfortunately died in 1980, and he died, fortunately for him, doing something he really loved. He was on the golf course. He loved golfing. And so he suffered a massive heart attack while he was golfing, and he died. And so, you know, the whole state of Hawaii was mourning his death, because he was such a well-known, well-loved individual. So they had his body at the rotunda at the city hall for the public to view him. And you don't really realize how much he meant to Hawaii for music and slack key. So when he died, you know, my thought was that, you know, this guy was so influential in Hawaiian music. We needed to do something to honor him, you know, and pay tribute to what he's done for all Hawaii, you know, but particularly inspiring young musicians to follow in his footsteps. And that's kind of like what he did with his sons, you know. So we started, myself along with Cyril and some other people, did this event to honor him in 1982 in his hometown of Waimanalo. So we weren't quite sure exactly how that was going to happen, but we did it at the Waimanalo Beach Park. And unbeknownst to us, we thought we would just have this little ceremony and with some people playing music, you know. But over 5,000 people came. A lot of people, yeah. And you know, like, so we had, you know, everybody that was known in Hawaiian music there performing for Gabby. And it was such a huge success that people asked me, you can't just do this one time. You know, this has to be like, you know, annually. And I thought to myself, wow, we were just thinking of just doing this one time thing and, you know, that's it. But the more I thought about it, the more I liked the idea. So the following year, in 1983, we moved that whole thing to Honolulu at a place at Ala Moana Park called the McCoy Pavilion. And so I thought to myself, okay, I would need support from all these different guys. But it turned out where all the people that were into slack key, they were like anxious and very supportive of trying to do this thing, not only to pay tribute to Gabby, but to perpetuate the art form. So I got people to come that had not been playing for a while, like Atta Isaacs, and then also Raymond Connie, guys like that, and they all came and so it was a huge success again. So it became such a success that the television stations approached us. It says, we would like to televise this whole event. So I said, really? So yeah. So basically, what we started in 1982 as a one-time thing went to 2 years, and then it went to 5 years, and then it went to 10 years, then it went to 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 years. And this year, in 2018, we're going to celebrate 36 years of this festival. It's a long time. So we went from one festival back in 1982. Now we have 18 festivals. We do 8 festivals in Hawaii and 10 festivals outside of Hawaii. We do it on the west coast of the United States. We do it on the east coast. We do it in Japan. We've been invited to do certain things in Europe. So, when I think about the 36 years that we're now at, I'm thinking like, okay, we've only accomplished this much. I can't even fathom what we can accomplish in another 35 years. I mean, there's 7 billion people in this world. We have yet to touch all these lives. And I'm thinking, okay, you know what? I think if we take this music out there, I think people will appreciate it, And so wherever we've gone, that's what's happened. People that didn't know about the music came and said, whoa, we didn't know it was like that. I said, yeah, this is our folk music. This is how this is how most people in Hawaii, this is how they enjoy themselves. This is not the music of Don Ho. This is not the music of these guys. This is our folk music. So people don't know that slack key and the slack key guitar and that music is older than the ukulele in Hawaii, because the ukulele came way after the slack key. Yeah. I said, really? Yeah. I said, now the ukulele is becoming very popular, all over the world. And so people that have been involved with that, they've managed to get so many people involved all around the world. And so it's a good thing. And it's easier to play a 4-string instrument rather than 6-string. So that's why it's harder to try to encourage people to do slack key, because it's harder to teach them, when you're playing 6 strings, it's different from 4 strings. Yeah. And then the other thing is the tunings are different. So rather than standard tuning, which is an EAD-GBE, which is a Western tuning, we detune the guitar. And so there's many different, tunings today for slack key. So when you detune the guitar, then basically what happens is that all the chord configurations changes. You can no longer hold a traditional C like that, or G like that. It's all different now, because the whole configuration of the scale has changed on the fretboard. So, but we still have young people that are doing it. We encourage young people. We try to motivate them to do these things, and even the girls. You don't find very many women doing this, but right now we have X number of women and young people that are doing this stuff, and they're the future of this art form. So, and what's happening today is that it never used to happen before, but in the old days, people wouldn't share their what they know about slaki and their tuning and whatnot. It was more of a family thing. So, families kept their tunings to themselves and wouldn't share their tunings with other people. So, as transportation and mobility started rising in Hawaii, and people are able to go from island to island or whatever, so basically that helped with the getting people more aware of slaki, because now people are more mobile and more free. So over the years, many of our artists have held workshops so that other people can learn how to do this stuff, And so we have a lot of good educated teachers that can do this stuff and teach people. And so, like the hula, the kumu hula, the teacher, teaches the students, and then when the students become proficient at playing, then they also teach other people. So it keeps on multiplying. It keeps on multiplying. It keeps on going. So it's a great thing because it's a family thing, because really, our group is not as large as in Japan, for instance. Like they have 2,000 hula halaus, 2,000. But we're not like that, because it's a more difficult art, So and basically, it takes a lot of practice and takes a lot of concentration to do this stuff. So, but we're getting out there. So many people are learning about slaki, in Japan, all across the United States. So slaki actually has an interesting history to it because, as most people know, slaki basically is detuning the guitar to different, tunings rather than the EAD GBE. And how that happened, it's believed that it's purely by accident that happened, because back in the early 1800s, when the Mexican vaqueros were commissioned and contracted to come to Hawaii to teach the Hawaiian cowboys how to manage cattle. And so it's speculated that they brought their guitars with them. And so when the work was over, they would gather by the fireplace or whatever and play the guitars. And so the Hawaiians, has never ever seen an instrument like that. We don't have a history of string instruments. So the Hawaiians are amazed that, that instrument made such beautiful sound. So when the contract was over for these Mexican vaqueros, some of them went back to California, but they left their guitars back in Hawaii as gifts to the Hawaiian cowboys. The only problem about that was that they didn't teach the Hawaiians how to tune the guitar, So it's speculated that the Hawaiians, because they had a good ear for music, they tuned the guitar to what they thought they heard, and based on Christian hymns at the time, and actually major scales, they actually tuned the guitar to a major scale, which turned out to be what they call the G tuning, or the Taro Patch tuning, which is a D, G, D, GBD, and that tuning. And so, that's kind of like where it started. And so, again, since they had no formal education in music, they had to only use their ears what they thought sounded pleasant. And so it ended up with that tuning being the start of slaki.
something about the openness. If I just hit the open strings, it's this lush, beautiful chord. If you do that in standard tuning, it doesn't sound like a chord. So that's what gives it that open nature, is this tuning. Then a lot of this music is like a folk tradition. There's theme and variation. And some of the rhythmic patterns and the textures imitate the Hawaiian chants. And also a very connected legato sound. I'm leaving my fingers down the whole time. So one note carries right into the next note. Then over time, more advanced techniques. These sort of things develop. But the bass line is always there, that heartbeat. Harmonics. The Hawaiians call those chimes. And borrowing from the Spanish strumming, sometimes the bass player gets a little solo. So it's an improvised style. You can just kind of play how you feel in the moment.
And so over the years, of course, these various families that were living on the Big Island, like most things, people experiment. You know, what other ways can I tune the guitar? And so it became property of the family that experimented with that tuning. So now that family, you know, they're known for the C tuning, and this family is known for, you know, G tuning. And then you had the wahine tuning, you know, all that different kind of tunings. And so, but again, it was basically all major open, you know, tuning. So those were the tunings that were used back then. So the G tuning, the C tuning, you know. But as time progressed, again, because we're influenced by so much of the world around us, you know, Gabby, he actually learned from other people too. But then because Gabby was, he was really into jazz and also, you know, pop music, he started experimenting and doing things like B-flat tuning, you know. And he didn't know anything about music. He didn't read music. He didn't understand notes or whatever, time signatures, nothing, you know. But his ear was impeccable. He had great ears. So he came up with an amazing B-flat tuning, you know, and like people like, you know, what do you call, Sonny Chillingworth came up with other tunings, and then basically Atta Isaac came up with a C tuning that he's known for. And so everybody started coming up with signature tunings for themselves. They were known for that tuning, and this guy was known for that tuning. So what actually catapulted Slaki in those early days was a gentleman by the name of he was the guy that actually could read notes, you know. So what he did was he transcribed the tuning into notes so that the music community out there could understand what was happening and how these things were done. And so, you know, he was the guy that actually got other people turned on to Slaki, like Chet Atkins, known in Nashville and whatnot, to, you know, coming up with a song called Opihi Moi Moi, and became a signature song for Slaki, you know. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of like what's happened, you know. It became a community of Slaki that everyone gravitated to each other because they were doing the same thing, although in different tunings. It became somewhat like a brotherhood of Slaki guys. And so all these guys started doing recordings. Sonny Chillingworth, Ata Isaacs, Gabby Pahinui, you know, Raymond Connie, all the old guys started doing all these tunings. And so they actually set the groundwork for what's going to happen to Slaki in the near future. So basically, the next generation after Gabby was people like Keola Beamer, Cyril Pahinui, Ozzy Kotani, Dennis Kamakahi, you know, and a whole bunch of other guys that were experimenting with tunings and taking Slaki to another level. So, you know, they solidified actually the legitimacy of Slaki music and Slaki guitar by doing this sort of stuff. Because what happened when they started getting involved, then universities and other institutions wanted to know more about Slaki and how it's done. So these people would go and do workshops at universities or at schools or at private, you know, areas, and impart their knowledge about Slaki to all these different people. And so once it became mainstreamed, the awareness level of Slaki went from here up there. Yeah, because not only were they teaching, they were also recording. And that's one of the ways that you need to perpetuate the art form. You have to record. And recording actually leaves a legacy of the art form for the generations ahead of you. And so after the 70s, basically, you know, with Gabby and these guys, all the young guys started really recording a lot. And so a gentleman by the name of George Winston, who was into Slaki, he called me up one evening. He's actually a piano player. He plays all over the world. And he called me up when he was in Chicago. And he told me, "Hey, Milton, I got a great idea. Why don't we start a record label, call it the Slaki label, you know, and then we can record all these guys." And I said, "Well, since I'm doing the festivals, why don't you do the recording, and then we work together so that we can actually, you know, become a more powerful force." So that's what happened. So he kind of like started recording all these guys like Keola Beamer, George Cool, Cyril Pahinui, Ledward Ka'apana, and all these guys that are well known. recording all of that stuff, and then I would do all the concerts with all the guys. And then together, we became a force up there, trying to do this stuff. So we kind of like put the map, Slaki on the map. And so the next generation after them is happening right now. So we have a whole slew of new generation of Slaki players. These young players. And like most generations that are affected by the times, that they live in, they're experimenting with what else they can do. This is what these guys, we learned from them. So we're doing this. So now they're trying to find an identity for themselves. So what can I do as an artist to make my Slaki different from them? So there's two schools of thoughts in Slaki. One is the traditional thinking of keeping Slaki pure, meaning very traditional, no experimentation. The type of Slaki that, Alice Lamakelua and those people were doing, very basic, very simple. But since Alice and those people were doing that, and Alice, she died a long time ago. She's probably like 120 or 130 years old. But, it evolved tremendously in terms of what people are doing with Slaki. So today's artists who are influenced by so much more because we have, so much different media people can use. And then we have the internet, then we have YouTube, then we have, everything is available to everyone, everywhere. So they're using those experiences and trying to incorporate styles of music from around the world into their Slaki playing. So, and to Alice Makelua that did the old traditional style, probably would be turning over in her grave because she probably don't recognize what's happening today. So it's the evolution of the art form. These guys can do all the old stuff, but like most musicians, they want to experiment and see where else they can go. And so that's what's happening today. And so I support all of that, and I encourage that because that's how art is. You have to experiment. You have to have your own eye for this stuff, your own ear for this stuff. So that's kind of where it's at. So much of what's happening has not been possible without a person like King David Kalakaua, who, during his time, encouraged the practice and playing and of Hawaii's art forms like the hula and the music, etc. Because prior to that, the missionaries tried to suppress all of this stuff. They didn't want all this stuff. They consider it to be primitive, to be native. They didn't want that. They wanted to enlighten the Hawaiians in their own ways. But King David Kalakaua, he was known as a merry monarch because he always liked to celebrate things and celebrate life and celebrate what was good about the Hawaiian culture. So without him, we probably would not have the hula as it is today. Without him, we probably would not have the music of Hawaii as it is today, because he was the forerunner of all this stuff that he encouraged to keep going. This was like, in the 1800s, and so we needed somebody like him to be there to encourage the art and to practice the native arts, whether it's performing or whatever. So, and of course now I think the world is embracing, all cultures everywhere because we all have something to offer. Whether you live in, in Brussels, Belgium, or Da Nang, Vietnam, or wherever, we all have something to offer. And so because of that thinking, so now we have Saki guys playing with people that play the chin, which is a Chinese instrument, or people playing with the shamisen, and experimenting with all these musical styles and genres to see how this stuff would work out. And it's a beautiful thing because it actually brings people together, from one culture to the next culture and coming together and becoming somewhat of a fusion, So we have a guy like, you say LT, he didn't know too much about Slaki until I introduced him about Slaki. But because he's so talented, he kind of figured everything out, And so his style of Slaki is different from other guys, But, I tell him, you know what? Being different is a good thing. Because, you're showing your uniqueness. You're showing that you can, evolve from this part, to that part or whatever. So, when people see him perform, and, he's doing different tunings, but because his styling is so different, he's like, wow, is that Saki? It's Saki, but it's his style, It's like, I never even thought or believed that it could be like that. I said, yeah, because you know what? I mean, as a musician, as an artist, you have the freedom to express yourself in different ways, and that's how he expresses himself that way. So that's the beauty of the art form that, the guitar in the hands of the artist makes it different. So, I'm thrilled to know that the direction that Saki is going in. I think even for people like you guys to come here and tell me, talk about Saki or whatever, that's kind of like flattering to us because perhaps, you guys will also become part of our, soldiers to get out there and spread the gospel of Saki in other parts of the world that perhaps never heard it. And that's a wonderful thing for us. So, again, like I said, I've exposed to Saki since the 70s. I've been doing the festival since 36 years. But there's so much more that's ahead of us in terms of the music. And I'm quite sure things are going to change. And I embrace change because it's important, because the next generation is going to express themselves in a different way. And whether it's, something that we recognize or don't, if it's in a Slaki tuning, then they're a brotherhood. So, and I want to differentiate between what some people call alternate tunings and Slaki tuning, because there are people out there, particularly people that play blues and play, other styles of music. They do what they call alternate tunings. And so what differentiates alternate tuning from Slaki tuning? Really, it would be the bass notes on the guitar in the tuning, because most of Slaki tunings double up on the notes as far as the bass goes. Like if you're in a G tuning and your top note is a D note, So D, G, D. So you're repeating the D again, and then the G, you're repeating the G again. But to differentiate between the guys that are playing alternate tuning, they don't normally use their thumb to play the bass note at the top of the guitar. And so that's a subtle difference between people who are playing slack key and using their thumb to play the bass note, and then picking the treble notes for the melody line. And so you got two things going at once, and it sounds like maybe two guitars playing. And so that's kind of one of the major differences between what people may see as alternate tunings that rock and rollers may do, or blues guys are doing, or whatever, you know. And really, if you look around in the world today, and the cultures that exist in today's world, the tunings for different countries with string instruments are different. They tune their instruments different. So, like I said, you know, the shamisen, they tune it different. The shin, they tune it different. If you go to the Middle East, they tune theirs different. So, it's kind of the cultural influences of performing on a string instrument is highly rooted in that history of theirs, you know. So it's no different from the Hawaiians, who have, you know, their environment and their social, you know, and the people that they're influenced by has all been influential in the music that they're doing. When we were in Europe, you know, what they wanted to hear was actually the traditional music of Hawaii, you know, and the people that we met that were actually playing Hawaiian music was playing music like that we would know that was from the 50s. Yeah. And so, you know, for us it's like while it's good, it was kind of passé already, because like I said, the music continually evolves, and so we're trying to tell them that, yeah, I mean, that was part of our musical history, what happened then, you know, but we've evolved to a certain level that's a little different now. And so I kind of told them that, you know, like, so now this is what we're doing now. This is, you know, and how we perceive what Hawaiian music is today. Yeah, anyway, you know, so I thought, well, yeah, I mean, you know, like, all that is the, you know, kind of give us a basis for our music from back then, but we only use that as a reference point, you know, to take the music elsewhere and to go to another level. So, and then I kind of told them, you know, what was surprising was that they were all playing music with a sheet music in front of them, you know, and so we just kind of like said, oh, we don't do that. So I said, well, okay. I said, well, you want us to play with you? I said, okay, well, why don't you just play? Just play, you know. So they started playing. They said, we just jump in and start playing, right? I said, how do you do that? I said, well, we don't need to look at music. We don't need to read a sheet, you know. It's just from here, you know. And we just said, we cannot do that. So we have to have a sheet. I said, well, that's not Hawaii. Most Hawaii, we play from here and here. Well, whenever here, you know, we play. So how do you know where to go? I said, because we hear it. we can hear where you're going. I said, oh, we need to learn that. I said, you know, I said, if you become dependent on that, you know, it'll be very difficult for you to move beyond that. You know, I said, if you look at a lot of places where they have a concert or whatever, and they invite somebody to come on stage, and he just plays, you know, and that's how it should be. It should be like that. I said, oh, we don't know that. And this guy said, oh no, I went to conservatory. I said, okay, good. I said, you know, I said, yeah, okay, yeah. And, you know, I got to say this much, though, like, in Japan, they're crazy about Hawaiian music, crazy. And they have a lot of bands over there playing Hawaiian music, you know, and Slacky too. There's a whole slew of them over there. And so we invite, you know, every now and then we invite an artist from Japan to come and play one of our festivals, whatever. But we all notice, Hawaii guys, we all notice that there's something missing about their playing. No heart in the music. It's mechanical. You know, it's like they're technicians, you know, but without a heart, with no soul. I said, oh, they are. I said, oh no. Yeah, you know what? I mean, you need to come to Hawaii to live a little while. You have to live here a little while to get the feeling for the ocean, the air, the environment, the people. You need to instill that in you, you know, for you to feel and emote these emotions naturally, you know. But you're not going to be able to do that if you live in Yokohama, you know, and you you can't do that, you know. It says that, oh, so the greatest Slacky player right now in Japan is this guy Yuki. He's the greatest Slacky player for them. And he's good. But no feeling. Yeah. No emotion. He just plays, you know. So I said, yeah, you know what? I mean, like, the music lacks aloha. There's no aloha in the music. I say, what do you mean? It's like, you know, you're good at what you do, but, you know, much of music has to do with emotion, feelings. And you're having a difficult time convey those feelings into your music, you know, because that's what music is emotions. And so if we listen to you, it's boring. You know, we don't tell them straight out it's boring, but, you know, it's like, it's boring. So, but as a technician, you got it, but, you know, you're not going to impress anybody in Hawaii. So. You know, it's like, you know, I asked these guys, like, because we're like flabbergasted, to put it mildly. How has a country like Japan got involved with Hawaiian music and loved it so much, and the hula, etc. You know, and we're talking. This is like big business over there. We're talking like 2,000 halaus. This is like huge, you know. And they're kind of, they operate like almost like a multi-level company. You know, multi-level company? Yeah, they have this halau, and then they have the students, and the student graduate, and then the student has her own halau, and then they keep on multiplying, you know, it's all like that. it's like it keeps growing. It's crazy. So, and again, it's like, but how did this stuff start? I mean, how did you have this affinity for Hawaii, you know, and develop this interest in Hawaiian music and hula and whatnot? And said, you know, they're not quite sure, but they remember like these guys back in the 1920s, that were playing Hawaiian music and steel guitar, and starting these Hawaiian bands. And from that, you know, Hawaiian music grew in notoriety in a small group of people in Japan. And over time, meaning like, you know, decades, that the stuff started growing. And so more and more people got involved with playing Hawaiian music. So, and then the hula actually evolved mainly because of the fact that they love the art form, you know, and the hula doesn't require you to play an instrument, you know. And so the halaus there would then hire the Japanese Hawaiian band to back them up, you know, play Hawaiian music, etc., you know, whatever. And so that's kind of like what happened in the proliferation. And so they said, oh, you know, after World War II, you know, there was a history and a time when, you know, there was a dark period in Japan with the war, etc., and you know, the U.S., etc. So, but that generation, you know, didn't dwell on that. They didn't dwell on that, on the negative things, because they said our generation, which was post-war, we embraced things that were Hawaiian, and even to the extent that we felt compelled to learn more about Hawaii, because, you know, unfortunately, in the history of our country, this happened, but we had nothing to do with that. So, you know, we understand that, you know. So basically, you know, we embrace things Hawaiian and whatnot. It says, yeah, so like the music, the hula, you have en masse over there. Again, the lack of emotion, the lack of aloha, because when they dance, again, it's like yeah, it's like a robot, you know. It's like precision, whatever. But this, so they, most of the halaus in Japan are sister halaus to the halaus in Hawaii. And so all the kumuhula in Hawaii go to Japan and teach these people over there in Japan. And this is, you know, perennially, every year they go there. And so we notice that the Japanese dancers, the new generation, are actually getting better and better, incorporating the emotion of the dance. So I think what's happening is that, like most things, it evolves, and that the new generation is finding out that, no, they don't want to do it how they were doing it. We want to do it this way, which has been a good thing. So same thing with the music. They're, you know, hopefully getting better and better. But there's always that also a language barrier. So not everyone speaks English in Japan. And so, but the ones that do speak English, you know, they're okay. But we honor them for you know, doing what they do and loving Hawaiian music and playing Hawaiian music and whatnot. But again, it's like, you know, different culture, different language. So it'd be a while before they would sound like a native Hawaiian. So, but it's no different from wherever. So the guys like the guys in Amsterdam that they play music whatnot, and you know how they learn? YouTube. Yeah, YouTube. So I said, oh yeah, I mean it's fantastic what you're doing, to have that passion and to do this. So and again it's like but you gotta come live in Hawaii a little while. Live in Hawaii a little while. But the dances and whatnot, they're different. So very pretty, very so it's like Dutch dances. A little different. So, but again, I much respect to them because they're trying and they love this stuff and they're doing this stuff and they even do shows, whatever. It's just like fantastic. So I know that in Europe, for instance, there's a long history of Hawaiian culture and Hawaiian music. In Germany, they had one of the largest collection of Hawaiian artifacts in the world. Yeah, in Germany. And even more so than Hawaii. What happened was that during the whaling days, when German ships came to Hawaii, they would take back all these artifacts to Germany. Yeah. And England. So, and now, in these days now, they're trying to repatriate all these artifacts back to Hawaii. And it's slowly happening. So, just recently, England brought back a lot of stuff. They gave back Hawaii, Germany too. So it's slowly happening. They said it rightfully belongs in Hawaii, and they took it out of Hawaii. But again, there was that appreciation for Hawaiian things, And as you know, Hawaii was once a kingdom and a monarchy, And so, there was a special bond with England, and that's where most of the Hawaiian royalty got their, reference was from England. So that's why our flag almost looks like the Union Jack. And so, yeah. But, sake today is like we're at the heyday of sake right now. We have artists that are touring. In fact, we're like the pioneers as far as taking the music outside of Hawaii and touring, because a lot of the other artists that do Hawaiian music weren't doing that, but we kind of set things in motion that we knew that if this art form is going to grow, we have to take it outside of Hawaii. So that's what we've been doing. We started touring since 1991 outside of Hawaii. So every year we tour. We go different cities and different places. So, like I said, it's like more and more people are beginning to know about sake, and social media has been a big plus for us too. So like everybody else, and we've gotten to the point now, like we do an annual tour to the Northwest. So we go to Oregon, we go to Washington, Canada, whatever. So now it's like, we always get an email saying, oh, I hope you're coming back again next year, So now it's like, a regular thing, So we're developing this following in all these different cities, so which is a great thing. And, I think word of mouth is the best publicity you can get, And social media is helping that cause along. So, what started in 1830 when sake was first introduced in Hawaii, it's 188 years ago, long time. So in terms of that history, the sake festivals are relatively short, 36 years. So, but like anything else, we started a nonprofit entity called the Kiho'ala Foundation, and whose sole mission is to promote preserve and perpetuate the art form. And how do we do that? We do that by encouraging young people to take up the art form. We do workshops, we visit schools, we do tours, we go all over the place. And you got to do that consistently over time. And so that has become our arm, so to speak, to promote Slaki wherever. So that's kind of where we're going. And, you know, I in the beginning, when we first started, we weren't quite sure exactly whether, you know, we would meet with success with people supporting this art form. So, but now, because we set up a nonprofit arm, so now we're able to solicit grants. We don't do fundraising, by the way. Yeah, we don't do any fundraising. We're going to go after grants and donations, and that's how we survive. So, and so we've, you know, so the state of Hawaii has been one of the biggest supporters of what we do, because they understand that this is what Hawaii is. This is what, you know, the culture is. This is what we are. This is who we are. So, and it's quite unique, you know. There's, I don't know of any other culture that does what we do. So basically, you know, we're happy about that in terms of, you know, getting that kind of support. But again, though, you know, we're very careful about what we do in terms of like how we promote the art form and who's involved in the art form, because we want to try to keep it, quote unquote, a Hawaii thing. This is not a Japan thing, although they have tons of players. You know, this is not a California thing. You know, this is not a European thing. This is a Hawaiian thing. And we want to keep it a Hawaiian thing. So when we do all the festivals that we do, 90% of the artists are Hawaiian. You know, they're not from Japan. We may have a token guy from Japan play, but, you know, but 90% of the players will be Hawaiian. Yeah, and I say that mainly because if you look at the history of steel guitar, which was invented in Hawaii by Joseph Kikuku, you know, Hawaiians were very generous people. They would share everything they had. That's how, I think we overshared. So, Joseph Kikuku, he invented the steel guitar. So in the early days, the Hawaiian troubadours would tour the mainland, and they would share what they teach people how to play this, you know. In fact, there was a documentary on blues. And so it was on PBS, a public broadcasting station, and they were interviewing these old blues guys in the South. And they were asking these people, so how did you start and where did you learn how to start doing this stuff? He said, shock to everyone. He said, well, we learned from the old Hawaiian troubadours. They were playing the slide guitar. It was, you know, it was a steel guitar, and that's how we learned. So many people were shocked that they learned from the Hawaiians. The Hawaiians were doing this stuff way before all this stuff was happening. You know, I tell people, you know, Hawaii had the guitar way before any state west of the Rockies. Really? So yeah, we had the guitar way before any of those guys. So he said, how can that be? He said, pretty simple. He said, before California was California, it was Mexico. Yeah? Those guys, the Mexicans that were there, they came to Hawaii. The king contracted them to come to Hawaii, teach the people how to manage cattle. Then they taught the Hawaiians about the guitar, this and that and whatnot. Anyway, so long story short is that, yeah, I mean, we have this affinity with Spaniards because they brought the guitar. We learned the guitar. But like the ukulele, which is a Portuguese instrument, people who know that with ukulele, they think it's Hawaiian. They call it ukulele. It's Hawaiian. Hawaii put that instrument on the map. So, it's like guitar? Yeah. It's like a guitar. That's what we did. So we were playing all that stuff way before a lot of these guys. So really, it's like, oh, yeah, people don't understand it. That's kind of what happened. So, you know, I mean, like, yeah, so we want to keep this thing as its origins are from Hawaii. Its development is from Hawaii. Many people now are playing slaki guitar around the world. But they still look to Hawaii as the source where it all began. It's all started. We have the history. We have the performers. But that doesn't mean that we, you know, take a back seat and relax and everything be fine. No, we have to actively be involved, you know, to promote the art form, to encourage young people to do this stuff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's an ongoing thing. And so we believe that, you know, the art form one day will reach all corners of the earth, you know. And we know that we already started the process of getting people to know about slaki because now they can find it also on, you know, on YouTube. They can go to social media, whatever. And so our next mission, once we get that people to be open to this stuff, is to go there and perform. That's what we intend to do. Using, you know, our nonprofit status and also finding partners that believe in what we're doing and going out there. So the process already started, and you know we're slowly, you know, I mean, getting out there. And people tell us, well, why do you want to go to, you know, Asia or wherever? It says, you know, you guys haven't even been to all of the states yet. I was like, that's true. We haven't been to all 50 states yet. You know? We've been to, let me see. Oh, we went to about 12 states already. So we got a lot more to go. You know, so we got 38 states more to go. You know, it's so there's a lot of work ahead of us. So, but yeah, it's truly considered to be one of the last great guitar traditions in the world today. You know, they've already discovered all the other stuff already. You know, they already know about all the other stuff, and slaki guitar is the last one. Yeah. As you know, our mission of our nonprofit, the Kiyola Foundation, is to promote, preserve, and perpetuate slaki guitar. As part of that mission, we feel that, and we hope, and we wish that the future for slaki will get down to actually normalizing the art form in our music curriculum throughout Hawaii. We feel that slaki should be part of the music curriculum in every school, whether it's public schools or private schools. Because if we can institutionalize the art form as a legitimate art form in the school system, we will then impact literally thousands of people that may want to pursue this interest in playing slaki. So if we can reach them through the school system when they're young, you know, like any other music, you know, whether it's jazz, whether it's rock, whether it's this or that, you know, this would be one of the options they can follow, you know, and we would have instructors to do this stuff with them. So right now I know that it's only done on a piecemeal basis with different guys going into the school and holding a one-day workshop or whatever. But that wouldn't have the impact of institutionalizing that whole thing in the school system. Because once we do that, then we're developing a whole base of players for the future. And so what bodes well for them is that they will then be able to get to a certain level and take this thing out there. Wherever, when where you want to go to Europe, you want to go to South Pacific, you want to go to Asia, wherever, it's there. We can do this stuff. We have the crew. We can do this stuff. So that's kind of like our wish for the future for Slaki. And that, like anything else, the future depends on the young people of today. Old guys like us, we can only do so much as far as, what we're doing now. But hopefully we'll set the groundwork for them to, follow and take it even beyond what we're doing. And that's kind of what we're looking at to have done.
next time. God bless.